All right, can I have a volunteer to say an opening prayer for us? All right. Oh,
Say it.
thank you.
All right. Our dear Father in heaven, we're so grateful for the opportunity we've had to work with Sister Ashley and to be able to learn and understand science better. We ask that Thou will help us to be prepared and ready to take our finals. Will Thou help us to learn and that our hearts and minds will be open. We ask for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, so let's get going. Share my screen. All right. We're going to just a brief agenda for the night. We're going to talk briefly about the schedule next week. It is very different than it's been any other week, so be sure that you read that carefully, and I'll post more details in the announcements, but just a heads up, it's really different. Tonight, we'll be talking about evolution, and then we'll do the Explore activity and then review for the test. So next week, this week there are 2 enriched discussion boards. Don't forget that. The first one is due this week. You have to do 1 post, initial post, and one comment on one of your classmates' posts. And so I went in that today, and I think only 6 people have posted so far. So you still have till tomorrow night, but be sure to get in there and do that. Then our second discussion board is just like our normal discussion board. You have till Friday, and we'll do follow-up posts next week. Next week, you actually will not have an enrich essay, but you will have a brief essay to do for the prepare section. And then you'll have an explore discussion board that you then have to use for the prepare quiz. So it's all convoluted, but watch the announcements for that and just be aware. So now we're into science. Tonight we're going to talk about the theory of evolution. And so just as a refresher, what is a theory in the science term? Okay, when we talk about a theory in science, it's more than just an idea or a hunch. It is a explanation for a broad array of things that we observe in the natural world that has been developed to fit all of our present evidence together, and so it has a lot of support behind it. And so sometimes you might hear, oh, it's just a theory, but the truth is a theory is kind of like the most solid thing that you can have in science. Technically, germ theory is still a theory. Then that's the idea that viruses and bacteria cause disease. We all believe that, but it's technically a theory. I shouldn't say, I'm assuming we believe that here. The atomic theory, the idea that things are made of atoms, still it's technically just a theory. Even though there's so much support for these, they're generally accepted. So when we say evolution is a theory, it's a theory on par with these other theories, that there's a lot of support and evidence for it. And it explains what we see in nature. And one of the important reasons that we need to understand the theory of evolution is because it is helpful making predictions. Regardless of what you believe happened in the past, understanding the theory of evolution helps you understand what will happen in the future. And so that's beneficial in understanding things like crops in agriculture, pesticide resistance, things like how we make vaccines. That's why we need a different flu vaccine every year, but we don't need a different whooping cough vaccine every year. And so understanding how this works enables us to do a lot of things that benefit society. And so that's why it's useful. Even if there are parts of it that are incorrect, it has proven itself useful in doing things that benefit humanity. So all of science is built on theories, and we've talked about a lot of those foundational theories, plate tectonics, atomic theory, and things like that. So this is kind of the underwriting theory of biology. Oh, the Big Bang theory for astronomy. So when we talk about the theory of evolution tonight, whether you choose to believe it or not is a personal decision, but I hope that you will seek to understand. And when we talk, we're going to talk about it like it's a fact, and that's just the language that we're going to use to make it easier to communicate. So the church actually has no position on evolution. These are some quotes from the lesson. Brigham Young said, "I want to say to my friends that we believe in all good. If you can find a truth in heaven, earth, or hell, it belongs to our doctrine. We believe it, it is ours, we claim it." And then the First Presidency Christmas message in 1910 said, "Our religion is not hostile to real science. That which is demonstrated we accept with joy. But vain philosophy, human theory, and mere speculations of men we do not accept, nor do we adopt anything contrary to divine revelation or to good common sense. But everything that tends to right conduct, that harmonizes with sound morality, and increases faith in deity, finds favor with us, no matter where it be found." And I'd just like to add a personal note on these. I feel that when we study science with our hearts open to the Spirit, it can be something that really strengthens our testimony. And I really feel that's true with all learning. I have a number of friends and family who have left the church because they studied beautiful teachings of the church about making our lives better, but didn't understand them and took them to be harsh and judgmental. And so whether we're reading things of God or things of the world, we need that Spirit to help us understand them and know how to apply them in our lives. And so I hope that we can do that with the things that we're learning here and the things we learn elsewhere. Oops, sorry, I went too many. Now I can't go back. Go back, sorry, go back. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the theory of human evolution. And so you may have heard that we evolved from chimpanzees. That's not true, but we'll talk about what the theory actually is tonight. We do belong to the group of animals that are called primates. And so what distinguishes us and primates from other animals is that we have grasping digits. Like if you look at your cat or your dog, they don't have grasping digits, so they can't wrap their hands around things. And a big part of that is our opposable thumb, meaning it's the opposite direction from our fingers. So thumbs are amazing. They are one of those underappreciated aspects of our body. Like, think of all the things you do with your thumbs on a daily basis. When I was a missionary, I had to teach a man to tie a tie who did not have a thumb on his right hand, and it was nigh on impossible. I think we just tied it once and told him to slip it over his head. Like, it can't be done. So another thing that we have is our limbs, especially our arms, actually have a greater range of motion than other animals. Like, you think about your dog or your cat can't spread its legs out in the same way that we can spread our arms out. And so that gives us the ability to do a lot of things that are amazing. Another thing that we have is what we call stereoscopic vision. Now, this is true of many predators, but our eyes are in front of our head, which means that it allows us to see 3D. So I know that my computer is sitting in front of the wall and not part of the wall, and that's thanks to my stereoscopic vision. Most animals in the wild that are prey, you'll notice, have their eyes on the side of their head, and that gives them actually the ability to see more area around them and see predators coming, but they don't have the same depth perception. And we have relatively large brains, so that's how we took over the planet and invented the internet. So one of the different things that differentiates us from other monkeys is that we have hands. Our Our hands and feet are very different. We don't have opposable big toes. But some things that we also have in common are having more like fleshy hands as opposed to, like the rough paws of a dog or cat. And we have fingernails instead of claws, which I don't know what the advantages of that are, but it's apparently useful. I should know. Sorry. This is a picture of the hand of an orangutan. And I just think it's remarkable how similar it is to a human hand. It's darker and hairier, but the shape is remarkably similar. She has fingernails just like we do, knuckles just like we do. So we look at things like this and see relation there. So you may have heard the argument that if we evolved from chimpanzees, why are there still chimpanzees? Well, scientists actually don't think that we evolved from chimpanzees. We think that chimpanzees are our closest living relative, and that some time ago, the evolution diverged, and that one group evolved into humans and another group evolved into chimpanzees. And this is a diagram called a cladogram, and it shows splits in the evolutionary tree. So the last split was where chimpanzees split from humans. Before that, gorillas split from the chimpanzees and the humans. Before that, orangutans split off. But hypothetically speaking, it would also be possible. It is believed that the chimpanzees split off from the gorillas when a river pushed through that area, and animals on one side evolved into the line that became chimpanzees and humans, and the other side evolved to become gorillas. Now, it would be possible that one side could evolve into gorillas and another side could stay relatively the same and evolve very little. If something like that happened, that's where you could have, this isn't what we think happened, but that would be like the theory behind that is then you would have one group that evolved into, say, humans and the other side that stayed chimpanzees. And that happens with some animals, but we haven't, there's no specific examples of that in human evolution. So this chart is showing how closely related we are. If you remember maybe from high school biology, the what do they call that? Mnemonic device. King Philip came over for green salad. That as we go, the more of these classifications that we share, the more closely related we are. So humans are in the genus Homo, and we are the only living species in that genus. And that is unusual, but it is not entirely unique. So what that means is, so you think of things like we have bald eagles and golden eagles. Those are different species, but they're in the same genus. They're very closely related. We have like red squirrels and gray squirrels. Same genus, but different species. And we see that with most animals, not all, but we don't see that with humans. We don't have anything that's closely, that closely related to us. Our closest living relative are chimpanzees, and we're in the same family, but not the same genus. And then other primates are further removed. In this lesson, we're going to use two terms, hominins and hominids. And the usage of these is not consistent. So, so what I'm telling you is just for this class. And these are not things that you need to remember. These are just things to get us through this this section. And you don't need to know this classification. It's just to help us understand where we fit in the scheme. Hominins are modern humans and our extinct human ancestors. So those are the people that were directly in line to humans. Hominids are all the great apes, including humans. So hominids is kind of like primates, and hominins is directly humans. So throughout time, we've had a number of species that were in the same genus as humans and were similar to humans that are no longer living. And so this shows how those have changed through time. And these also provide some of the what we call transitional fossils, or fossils that show evolution kind of halfway between apes and humans. And so we're going to go and look at a couple of those. And when we look at these fossils, the differences that we look for are that humans are adapted for life on the ground and apes are not. So as we mentioned earlier, that means we can't grasp with our feet. Our feet allow us to walk better, but they don't allow us to climb as well. We also walk upright, which allows us to do many more things with our arms. And we know that because we can look at the curvature of our spines is different than animals that are down on all fours. The way that our legs connect to our hips indicate that we are upright. And another thing that you don't think of, if you crawl around on your hands and feet, you have to like put your head way back so that you can see in front of you and you're not looking down. Yeah, that's because your neck connects to your head at the bottom. If you were, say, a horse, then your neck would connect at the back of your head, which allows your head to face forward when you're on all fours. And so when we look at these skulls and how the neck is connected, that gives us an idea of how upright these animals walked. And so I just want to say, the things that we are going over tonight are not that you need to remember the details, but I just hope that we can understand where this theory came from and why we have these ideas and how we know some of the things that we do. So some other things that we've noticed that through time, how we've become humans is we look like ancient like predecessors to the humans, and they have this big ridge over their eyes, and it's called the supraorbital ridge, and we don't have that anymore. Also, the apes and human predecessors have a much more pronounced chin. And larger brains compared to the size. We have larger brains compared to the size of our body, less pronounced chin. And our teeth are arranged in a, what we call a U shape instead of a rectangular shape. And we don't have giant incisors anymore, but I think that would be interesting if we did. So our teeth are very different. So some of these transitional fossils that we look at, this is one of the oldest, this fossil, and I'm not even going to pronounce to say that name at the top. You can just look at that and think, oh, that's a cool word. This was one of the earliest transitional fossils found in 2002. It was found in the country of Chad in Africa. And it had, while it still had ape-like features like the supraorbital ridge, it looked more human than anything we would have expected from that long ago. So we think it took, based on this, humans evolved earlier than we had known. Another fossil that you may have heard of before is Lucy. Lucy became famous because when she was discovered in the 70s, she was the most complete and oldest transitional fossil of the time. We think that she was 3 to 4 million years old, that she had feet for walking on the ground, but arms for climbing on the trees. So we think she was one of those species that was coming down out of the trees. She was about 1 meter tall, so a little over a yard for those of us who don't do meters. And they named her Lucy because as the archaeologists were finding her skeleton, they were listening to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. So random trivia. In the not too distant past, geologically speaking, we think that there were more human-like species at the same time. So we think that Homo sapiens, which is us, overlapped with Homo erectus and Neanderthals. And in fact, there are a couple companies, so we have found in our modern DNA from Neanderthals. And so they think that humans actually got together with the Neanderthals and interbred. And so Harley King was actually another instructor who taught this class, and he actually helped develop the class. And so he sent off his DNA to one of these companies and found that he's 2.7% Neanderthal, which puts him in the 58th percentile, but right on par with the average European. And I think 23andMe does this, National Geographic does it. So if you want to know how much Neanderthal you have, you can test that. And what they have found is that people from Africa actually have no Neanderthal DNA. People from Europe have about 2.7%, people who have, descended from Europeans. And I looked and looked and looked, way too many hours I spent looking for a chart for Neanderthal DNA like this that would show like what parts of the world had the most, but I couldn't find it. But this is another, there's another primitive human-like species from the Pacific Islands, and they found that the DNA from them spread like with decreasing amounts from these islands through Asia, none in Europe, none in Africa. They've actually in Africa found no DNA from primitive humans of any type in the DNA of most people from actually people descended of African descent. So. All right. So let us do are there any questions on what we've talked about tonight? All right, I'm going to start the Explore activity. So I've got to stop sharing that screen and start sharing another one. Okay, so can you all see 6 skulls on my screen? Oh, good. So for your Explore activity, you need to put these in order from closest relative to human to furthest relative from human. And it can be a little tricky, so that's why we're going to do it together. And I hope that we really will do this together. So in this picture, we have, here it is, Homo sapiens right here. This is a human skull. And then right here, this is a chimpanzee skull, which is the scientific name is Pan troglodyte. So random trivia, is anybody in here old enough to have played Number Munchers when you were a kid? So when I was a kid, they had this game called Number Munchers, and it was like Pac-Man but with math, and they had these little monsters called troglodytes. And I always thought that was a made-up word until I started teaching this class and learned that that's the scientific name for chimpanzees. So anyway, you should look that up on the internet because it was like for the primitive Apple IIe, it was awesome. So which probably, if you didn't play that game, you don't know what the Apple IIe is, but you should learn that too. So that one was, so what we need to do is go from Homo sapiens and then find, oh, there we go. We can look at these from all angles. So we're going to left, back, right, top, bottom. So we'll go through this a little more slowly. Okay, so which do we think is most closely related to the Homo sapiens?
My guess is the one to the left of us.
Which is the Homo neanderthalis. All right, any other guesses? All right, well, you are correct. It is the Homo neanderthalis. So what is next? Homo erectus. That is correct. And the reason that we know Homo neanderthal, I feel like these two look similar and these two look similar. But when we're looking at the Homo neanderthalis and the Homo erectus, what do we look at to tell us that the neanderthalis is more closely related?
The teeth?
Yes, that's one thing, that these teeth come out a little bit more. And you definitely can see this in the side view.
The eye pockets.
Yeah, this one has much more of a ridge here than this one does. So those are the big things to see on this. They look very similar from the
Also,
back. And then on here, when we look at them from the bottom, we can also see that it comes out a little, this jaw comes out more. Oh, I see here. Somebody says size of the head. Let's see. Yeah, these are similar, but this one does have a larger brain cavity than this one does. So that's another indication. Great, you guys are awesome. So now we have to do the next two. Australopithecus boise and Australopithecus afarensis. Now, just so you know, I have never heard these words pronounced myself, so don't take this pronunciation and go talk to other people with it, because it could very well be butchered. I should have like played it on Google, but I didn't. So, which one's next, the boise or the afarensis? Oh, hey, somebody guesses afarensis. Do we have any other guesses?
I'll go with the Boise.
All right, we've got a vote for each of them. I like it. So why Ayla, did you guess afarensis?
I feel, can you hear me?
Yes.
I feel like the teeth are a little bit closer in relation,
Okay.
and the formation of the skull is more similar. The other one is more, the teeth area is larger, and it makes me think more of an ape or a monkey.
Okay. So then I'm not quite sure. Oh, it was Nicole. You picked not Nicole, Laurel. Sorry. You picked the Boise, right? Can you tell us why you picked? Oh, it wasn't you that picked it?
No, it was Victoria.
Oh, sorry, Victoria. Can you tell us why you picked the Boise?
I just felt like the brain cavity was still a little bit larger than the afarensis.
Okay.
Afarensis.
I am really glad that you guys are seeing this, and and obviously you're not both correct. That's why I wanted you both to share what you were looking at. And this one is tough, and that is why we're doing it together. I think the biggest thing on this one is, see, because this one has this ridge on the top of its head, which would make us think it's less closely related. But this one, the jaw actually comes out more. I think it's easiest to see from this angle, which would make us think it is less closely related. But the big one here is when we look at it from the back. Does looking at this from the back give us any indication?
I think Victoria is more right because of the skull.
Yes. And I should have like gone through these again so you could see them, but that is what gives us away, is that the afarensis, sorry, Australopithecus boise is more closely related to humans than the Australopithecus afarensis. And the giveaway is the way that the neck attaches to the skull. This one is kind of in the back, because you can see the back of the human and the back of the Neanderthal and the back of the Homo erectus. We can't see where that neck connects because it connects from the bottom. On both of these, we can see where the neck connects, but it is definitely lower down in the Boise than the afarensis. So this one, this Boise was walking more erect than the afarensis. So that tells us that it was more closely related. But thank you so much for putting yourself out there and telling us what you were seeing, because you were seeing real things, and it's and that's the reason we were doing this together. So just to review, the order is Homo neanderthalis, Homo erectus, Australopithecus boise, and Australopithecus afarensis. So any questions about that? Okay.
Sorry, can you just run through them one more time, just so I make sure?
Yeah. Homo neanderthalis, number 1. Homo erectus, number 2. Australopithecus boise, number 3. And Australopithecus afarensis, number 4. All right, now we are going to stop this, and we're going to go back to that PowerPoint. and do some sample test questions. I'm just going to leave it here for a second, so if you look back at this later, you can pause it. This is a breakdown of the different types of questions. I think there's 57 questions. There might be 58 questions now. I forgot to update that, and the test has been changed from next semester, but it is somewhere between 56 and 59 questions. You do have, they're all multiple choice, true, false, or like multiple click. There's no short answer. There's no essays. And it is open book and open note. You cannot phone a friend. It is due December 15th, and there's a 90-minute time limit. And I really feel like that's adequate. I think with multiple choice questions, you can sit there for too long and talk yourself out of it. And if you don't know it after a couple minutes, you're not going to know it after a couple hours. It's just, I guess you could, since it's open book, look things up. But I think that the 90 minutes is sufficient on this. So I may bump it up. I may open it up for 2 hours, though. I'll just open it up for 2 hours and put that in the, I don't think you'll need it, but I think you will feel better if you have it. So I will give you 2 hours. So I picked what I thought were the 4 hardest questions. You may disagree, but hopefully this will not scare you, but help you realize, oh, I got the hard ones out of the way. I'll be okay. So question number 15. I hate this question. That's why I'm going to give you the answer. So if we made a model with our solar system the size of an Oreo cookie, what would be the largest object that would fit inside your house? So if you think if our solar system is the size of an Oreo cookie, what in the universe is roughly the size of your house? Any guesses on this?
E.
You are right, which is another reason I don't like this question, because I feel like it's so tricky. It's not really tied to anything. It's hard to conceptualize. And then the answer is none of the above. It's not a fair question, so now you know the answer. Okay. So another sample question. This is another one where I think that the answers are tricky, and that's why I'm giving it to you. Observations that consistently and closely match expectations are a sign of, mark all that apply. Which of these do you think?
C.
So it's mark all that apply. So we have a vote for C. I like it. Any other ones?
No.
Okay.
C is a well understood theory.
A, B, and D.
A also.
Yes. So we have votes for A, B, C, and D. And 1 vote for E. So the answer on this one is A, B, C, and D. And I think that A, B, and C are good answers, and I don't want to say like obvious, but relatively obvious. I think that D is, I'm not sure I agree with that, because you can say that anything indicates fraud or strong bias. So I feel like that is so difficult to determine for the non-scientists. That's the reason we have scientific organizations. And it seems weird to say that, oh, it means all these good things, or it could mean something bad. So what does that mean? Like, I don't know. So anyway, the answer is A, B, C, and D. Mark those if you want to get it right, but just know for yourself that D is kind of a questionable answer for this. So the chemistry section is the hardest. There are not many questions from that section. This is one of them. I feel like it's a little esoteric in that I don't know why you would need to know this if you're not in chemistry. So that's what I'm giving you this. And somebody guesses, is it carbon? Any other guesses? Somebody guesses B, which is carbon. Oh yeah, okay. I don't know why there's an A before carbon. that looks like a typo to me. And I just copied and pasted these out of the quiz. I didn't type them up, so somebody else made a typo that I didn't notice before. But the answer is carbon. That is the correct answer. And what this Lewis structure is showing us is that with atoms, you have your nucleus, and then you have these layers of electrons around it. And in the outermost layer of electrons around carbon, there are 4 electrons. It doesn't matter how many are in the layers below that. It matters less because they have less of an impact on how it bonds. But it has 4 in that outer layer. And I don't know exactly where that would have come up besides those people who did their discussion board posts on something dealing with carbon. So there you have it. So the next question is, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, okay, I thought I had the wrong question for a minute. What is the purpose of a scientific theory? A, to explain evidence. B, to help scientists make predictions. C, to prove people wrong, darn it. D, to prove people right, by golly. Or E, to predict evidence. Or combinations of these, A and B, or A, B, and E. Mariana guesses G. Other guesses?
A.
Okay. Which is
B.
a sub. Okay, we've got a yes vote for A and a vote for B. So Mariana, in your defense, I thought it should be G also. But if you want to get it right on the test, the answer is F, which is A and B. And that is to explain evidence and to help scientists make predictions. And so I don't quite understand what they are seeing as the difference between science making predictions and predicting evidence. I feel like theories do predict evidence. If this theory is true, then we should see something, and then we see it. So, but not to confuse everybody, the correct answer on the test is F. But this is a new question this semester, and I'm going to submit a correction for this, but there won't be time for that to go through before the test. So anyway, I'm helping you with it. So that's what I have for test review. Are there any questions?
But I have a question for you.
Yes.
I would love to hear what your personal thought is. We had to give our personal thoughts on this subject.
Yeah.
What is your personal thought on evolution?
Honestly, it used to be something that I had strong feelings against, but the more that I've learned, for me, I feel like I'm coming to an acceptance of that idea, that evolution is something that happened. And part of that for me is I feel like we were children of God, are children of God, and humans in the past were children of God, and that's what differentiates us from the animals. And so I don't know exactly when our spirit became human. Like, did Neanderthals have a human spirit, or were they animals? I don't know. But I'm okay with the idea of there being something that looks very much like a human that maybe does not have the mental capacity, or is not a child of God in the same way that I am as a human. And for me, I feel that having a belief in evolution, for me, and this is not to speak for other people, gives me a greater sense of responsibility to care for animals and the planet. Like, even though I don't believe that animals are children of God in the same way that I am, knowing that He created them and they played such an important role in His plan makes me want to be kinder and have a greater stewardship to protect essentially ecology, the environment, and animals alike. And so I feel like for me, that has brought me closer to God. Seeing love for his creations and feeling responsibility as his child is something that makes me feel closer to God. And so I don't want to judge other people's ideas, because I feel like for some people that can make a separation, but for me, I've found a way that helps me draw closer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I have to say, like, this was something that I came to, like, I have a bachelor's degree in geology, and so I feel like I didn't think a lot about it when I started college, but then my geology professors at BYU were very pro-evolution, for lack of a better way to say it, and they presented everything. And so I had these role models that I felt like, okay, well, you can reconcile it and I respect you, thus I need to give this more thought. And one of my professors even retired after I had him, and he wrote an entire book on his view of evolution as an LDS scientist. And I read the first half of it, and it was inspiring and helpful, although it's been like 10 years ago, so I can't tell you the details of what were inspiring and helpful. But he had a lot of good stuff in there. So I feel like it took me a long time to come there, and I don't expect anybody else to come there overnight or adopt that immediately, or even to spend that amount of time, because I was in a profession, I felt like, where I needed to do that. But if you're not in a profession where you need to do that, that may not be the best place for you to focus your time. So, all right. Any other heavy-hitting questions for the evening? So, all right, thank you so much for coming. I am so glad you made it, and I'm going to be super active in the discussion boards next week, because we won't be having live class, and this will be the end of our semester. And I hope that you all go on to do great things. Have a great semester next semester. I am not going to be back teaching next semester, so I am getting my high school teaching license, and I'll be doing student teaching instead. And so likely be back after that, because I'm not ready to go be a full-time high school science teacher yet with 2 toddlers, but we knew for 12 weeks. So thank you for coming, and I hope things go well for all of you. So feel free to email me with any questions that you might have. So we will see you. Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
You're welcome.
Great life. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.